So, if you are new to chess, one of the first questions that you might have is how do I become a master at chess? And pretty quickly, you will learn that you need to
Sounds
play in
right.
person, also known as over the board tournaments. And to get a title, these need to be of classical time control, which are long games. They can sometimes even go for 5 hours or more. Now, these
Sounds
over the
correct.
board tournaments are going to be very different to playing online games. And there's some things that I wish that I knew before playing in my first over the board tournament. So, here's 5 things that you should know before you play your first tournament.
Sounds right.
Number one is general etiquette and rules. Make sure you brush up on these before you attend your first tournament.
Sounds
For
right.
example, a lot of new players can often get caught out because they don't know these rules. So here's some of the things that you should know. Touch move. If you touch a piece, you're going to have to move that piece.
He touched the
He
king.
touched the king.
He touched the king. He touched the king. He needs to move it even. Oi, oi, oi.
I knew about this rule before my first tournament, and I think most of you will, but there is a second element that I didn't know. If you make an illegal move, for example, if you move a piece while you're in check and it doesn't block that check or get you out of that check in any way, your opponent will call the arbiter and you will have to redo this move. Your opponent will also get some time added to their clock. However, when you redo your move, you have to move that same piece that you moved the first time. For example, if you were in check by a bishop and you didn't see it and you moved your queen, you would have to move your queen to get yourself out of check. So this can get you in a lot of trouble if there are no good moves with the queen that get you out of check. So you may have to just put your queen in front of the king and lose your queen to the bishop. So you can actually lose the game if there's no good moves with this piece. So make sure you keep that in mind. Now, some other things that you should know is to make sure you press the clock with the same hand that you moved the piece with. Do not talk during your game unless it's for a draw offer or resignation. Only offer draws or adjust pieces on your turn as well. Also, shake hands with your opponent before the game. Before you start the clock, you have to shake hands with your opponent, or they can actually call you out on this and make you lose the game, because it's part of the sportsmanship policy. Another thing is do not bring your phone with you to the board. If your phone makes any noise or is switched on and your opponent notices this, you will forfeit the game and lose FIDE rating as a result. So there's usually somewhere that you can just put your phone away with the arbiter or even just leave your phone in the car, but make sure it is absolutely switched off and will not be making any noise. Otherwise, this is a really sad way to lose a game. And the last thing for the general etiquette and rules section is make sure that you're also writing your moves down. I would say to brush up on all your notation before you're playing over the board as well, just to make sure you're getting this correct. However, if you do mess it up while you're playing, most of the time your opponent will be very happy to just show you their score sheet and help you fix it up. Okay, so that's all for the first point. My next point is do not underestimate anyone. Kids, underrated players, and unrated players are often underestimated, but don't let your guard down just because your opponent may seem like a beginner at the start. This is a long form game, and a lot of the time, people may be a lot better than they seem. And also, over the board ratings are very different to online ratings, and you'll find that even a 1000 over the board is actually going to be very well acquainted with the game and be a lot stronger than you might expect. So make sure that you treat everybody with respect when you're playing and you play your absolute best and do not let your guard down. My next tip is manage your time well. For many people playing in their first over the board tournament, this will also be their first time playing a classical length game, which, as I've said before, can last up to 5 hours or even more than that. So make your best effort to remain focused for every move and do not rush, especially when you feel like you might be winning. I had a couple of times in my first over the board tournaments where I felt like I was getting a really good position and I got so excited that I started to blitz out and I wanted to finish the game, get out of there, and be done with it. But a couple of times my opponent actually had some counterplay and I wasn't taking that into account. I was too focused on my winning ideas that I didn't notice theirs and actually ended up losing the games. But it's a really good thing to learn for future, and now I feel like I'm a lot better at managing my time. But I would say really watch for this when you are playing. For me, I make sure that I take a certain amount of minimum time per move, no matter what the move is. For example, I'll say that I'm going to take at least 1 minute per move, even if it's obvious moves in the opening. I feel like this gets you into a good habit of making sure that you're looking at the whole board and really not rushing either. And there has been a few times where I'm almost certain that I'm going to make a certain move, and if I blitzed it out instantly, then I might have blundered something. So make sure you're really using your time. My next tip is calm your nerves. Not everybody has this problem, but for me, I really found that these over-the-board games had me getting really anxious. It's going to be a really long game, so while your opponent's taking a long think and you feel like you've got a grip on the position and you're not too low on time, just get up and take a walk and look at the other games and just relax a little bit. I find that getting up, taking a walk as well, allows me to come back and look at the board with fresh eyes. My last tip is don't give up and remember every single game is a new one. It's really easy to get tilted in these classical games because, for example, you might be holding a drawn position for 4 hours and then under time pressure you make one blunder and suddenly you've lost. And it feels terrible. In over-the-board tournaments, you're going to have to play a game just 30 minutes or an hour later. So you're really going to have to just be resilient and play that next game as a completely new game and don't let the last game's results affect how you play. If you go into your new game and you're still thinking about the troubles from your last game, then you're probably going to play a lot worse. Also, a lot of these tournaments are going to be Swiss pairings, and this means that your wins as a new player are going to come later on in the tournament. In Swiss pairings, they pair the higher rated people with the lower rated people to try and separate the higher rated people up to the top of the standings and the lower rated people down to the bottom. So your first couple of pairings are probably going to be with people significantly higher rated, and you might lose your first few games. Now, in my first few tournaments, this was really disheartening to me, and I actually have a story of when I lost my first few games and then I withdrew from the tournament, feeling really disheartened and feeling upset and losing some FIDE rating. After a few tournaments with similar results of me losing a few games and then withdrawing, I decided that I would make a pact with myself to play the entire tournament. And I ended up actually scoring a lot of points, gaining FIDE rating, and doing really well in the end. So even though the first couple of rounds might be tough, you will get some wins at some point, and it's okay if they don't come on straight away. So there we go. Those are 5 tips that you need to know before playing in your first over-the-board tournament. Good luck to anybody who's playing in an over-the-board tournament soon, and do let me know in the comments if you feel like I missed anything or if you found this helpful as well. See you next time!